Hey guys, Shane here at Tank Hunter Miniatures, and today we're looking into aircraft in the current edition, which is 10th. So, for the whole edition of 10th, I have not played a single game where anyone has bought an aircraft. I was just thinking about this the other day, and we had a discussion in one of the Discord groups I'm in, and we went through why exactly that is. So I thought I'd do a quick summary of what happened to aircrafts for 10th edition, and to a lesser extent 9th edition. It's been coming back a while. Aircraft are becoming less and less relevant, but let's get into that. So here we have a basic cheat sheet of how aircraft work. I only recently sort of read this and went through this because I'd never had before. So yeah, basically aircraft have two things you can do with them. They can either go in reserves, or if they have the hover ability, they just act as normal models with fly. So they can move over stuff, you know, things like that. But if they're an actual aircraft, and they come from reserve, as you can see with the diagram, they have to move in a straight line, then do a rotation. If they move off the board, they have to go back in reserve and come back. So basically, if you choose to come in reserve, that's a whole turn you're missing of it not on the board. Basically, it then has to... So say you get first turn. You have to then wait till second turn for most of them. Some aircrafts, this isn't the case, but the majority of them, you have to wait till next turn. They then have to arrive, which of course they come in from reserve 6 inches onto the battlefield edge. You might get some shots off, but they're not moving. So it's not until turn 3 you're really maneuvering them to do anything sort of important. Now, that can be very tricky, especially with the lack of space, because before we had bigger boards. They were 6x4. Now, of course, it's 5 foot by just under. So what you find is there isn't a lot of room, you know, to have this, you know, minimum distance of flying. It's very hard to cram everything in. Everything is such a lower, smaller scale now that aircraft don't seem to fit. And I'll say artillery doesn't seem to fit this edition. And especially with, you know, tournament sort of level terrain, how it's all L-shaped ruins and such. It's all cityscape sort of fighting now. So planes just don't really fit. So let's see, yeah. Now, runes visibility. Now, runes, of course, is a very important part of playing competitively. So, you know, that determines whether you can be shot or not. Aircraft don't get affected by this rule, meaning you cannot protect yourself. Because as you can say here, aircraft models are exception to this visibility to and from. So, if you're an aircraft, you can be shot even though you're behind a ruin, and vice versa. So it's very hard to protect these guys because these are not tough like entities, and you don't have the former abilities that could keep aircraft alive. There is no Jink anymore, which gave you that cover save, and there is no snap shooting, because before, prior to 8th edition, of course, it was an aircraft, you only hit it on 6s. But of course, Eldar, I'm blaming Eldar. Always blame Eldar. That was completely abused, and you just couldn't hit planes. You couldn't hit things in general. So they had to get rid of the whole snap firing system, which was a very big mistake in my opinion. So anyway, planes, you can, yeah, even though they're in aircraft mode, you can still shoot them as if they're on the ground, which is very strange. There isn't even a rule, because before you couldn't use blast weapons or flame weapons. If it was a torrent weapon, you couldn't hit an aircraft with it if it wasn't, say, in hover mode. You can now. You can use your flamer and hit an aircraft, a jet. There's no rules against it, so very odd. It just doesn't seem to fit. And the other costly thing about this is, like I said, it has to go in reserves. Now, reserves, we said, have their own limitations, where you can and cannot be placed. and it's the value. So if you load up a transport plane, you know, you've got to then put troops in it. So you could, you know, fill your whole reserve points cost with just one aircraft. And that aircraft isn't going to be put into a location. If it doesn't have deep strike, if it doesn't have hover, it's not going to get to a good position until turn 3. Halfway through the game, this guy isn't going to be really doing anything, and he's got a massive chunk of your army in him. So it just doesn't feel like valuable to give up that early sort of advantage, because you're banking everything on your reserves in this case. And like I said, it's not likely to really, well, depends the game, I guess. But anyway, let's give you some more examples of why it's not really good to bring these aircraft. So let's have a look here at the AdMech. Now, AdMech had really strong planes when these guys first were released, and I think it was like 8th or 9th, and they were wrecking house. So they're paying for that now. So we've got here the Archaeopter Transvector. This is the transport one. Now this one does have deep strike, and it says here if you've got it in hover mode, you know, you can come in, you can deep strike first turn, you know, like a drop pod. Well, that's pretty cool. But of course, once you fill it up with 10 units of like Vanguard's Qatari, that's another 100 points with a character. You know, you've already hit your limit. That's all your reserves you're going to get. So you can do this sort of, you know, once, depending how big the game is. If it's a 1500 point game, you probably can only afford one of these in reserve. If it's 2000, maybe 2 of them. So like I said, you drop this guy in. The model itself isn't going to do a lot of damage, because as you can see, it just has the stubber array, which is alright for anti-infantry, you know, and it's only BS4, so depending which way you're playing the game, which Imperial Art if you're using, that could be helpful or not. But anyway, if you were to go a different route, because as you can see the Dune Rider there, Dune Rider is a little over half the points. So you could have 2 of these for one of them, essentially. Almost. So, what's the advantage of bringing your Doom Rider instead of your Archaeopter? Well, again, you have more bodies, you have a lot more points to work out on. It's tougher. It can pop smoke, so it's gonna be more defendable. And it has more health. Yeah, it's 1 more health, and it's like, it's slower. Yeah, it moves 12, but it doesn't really matter that much. You got ways to get around this. The Rhino Rush detachment you can bring for this guy is insanely good. I've gone up against it. Oh, it hurts. The fire support, that's so good. If you want to go transport heavy, this is a great way to do it. So yes, you can deep strike in with one of these guys, you know, do a lot of damage, you know, first turn, but this is all going to be wiped out. This guy cannot survive. You've just sacrificed this model. And the other thing I wanted to say was, this has OC 0. All the planes have OC 0. You cannot do actions, you cannot hold objectives, you can only do one thing with them. Just do damage, deliver some guys. That's it. That's not going to win you the game, because you need board control so much in this edition. So when you do a comparison for basically the same unit, just one's alpha striking and one is not, like, the points cost just don't seem to really benefit it that much. Only if you can really do some severe damage turn 1 is this actually going to pay off. The other thing about this is the base size. So these guys are 170 by about 110. Now, to come in from reserve, because the other guys, this is the only one with deep strike. The other ones I think have hover, but if you were to not hover them, bring them on from reserve, you cannot put them facing forwards, because 6 inches is just under 150 mil. So with the base it cannot go on like frontwards. You have to deploy this guy sideways. And like I said, it has to move straight forward. So if you angle this guy wrong, you can't really maneuver him. So that is a massive hindrance. You cannot deploy this guy straight. He's got to go in a weird angle or, yeah, like I said, move sideways. So it's very strange how they've done this. They just didn't take into account like the actual size of these models and what that would mean for the rules they were making. I don't know if it was maybe two different teams that were sort of sorting this out, or if they just plain forgot how the size would work. So, yeah, this is an interesting one. So yeah, a lot of people who were using a lot of this tactic with the copters in previous editions, like, it's just not going to be effective here. And yeah, like I said, I don't see it anymore. I don't see anyone using any of these planes. Next one. So let's have a look at what I consider to be a better option for the Space Marines. Like, the Storm Raven has a good ability. The Storm Raven can, it's -1 damage, so it's a little bit more defendable. But the Black Star itself is probably the better one here. It's very thematic. So you can see it's the same point cost as a repulsor, 180. It has a little less transport capacity, but it, is able to move faster and do some more stuff. However, like I said, it has hover, so you can move it up. It's 14 wounds, so it's not exactly easy. You can't really one-shot this guy too easily. 3-up save is okay. Toughness 10 hurts a bit. But it doesn't have deep strike. If this had deep strike, it would be incredible. But it doesn't. So again, you need to either take this guy in hover mode, let him take some shots. Like, at least he has stealth. The stealth really helps here. -1 to hit, really good. The problem is he also has a smoke launcher, which is incredibly pointless because he already has stealth. And you can't really double stealth unless like someone's getting extra positives to hit, which is rare. So you're not going to need that smoke launcher. That's very pointless. So the Black Star, I feel, is a pretty good option, but I still think a repulsor is probably the better choice depending what you want to do. Like, a repulsor, yeah, it's half the speed, but it does so much more damage, and it is a lot more defendable. It's higher toughness, higher wounds. It's easy. You can actually, get this guy hidden behind the ruins. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, this is still an okay option. Like, it's very thematic if you want to play with a Black Star. But you're so much better just bringing a repulsor. Things are gonna, live longer. Because imagine, you bring your Black Star, you put it in hover mode, you put it in your back. It's in hover, so you can't actually hide it behind ruins because it's lost its aircraft ability. But it's still hard to keep because unless you're doing sky-high L-shaped ruins like some people do, it's a wide model. It's gonna be hard to hide, especially if you bring multiple of these. So it's risky. You can get shot off the table and all your guys just fall to the ground in your deployment zone, and so now you don't have a transport. So yeah, it's very risky if you want to bring a Black Star instead of a conventional transport. But I wouldn't say it's a bad choice. It's just a more difficult one. But speaking of bad choices, this is one of the worst in the game. I am shocked that someone let this go. And yes, Forge World very much looked down upon. But this discrepancy is insane. So the Hemlock Wraithfighter. This was a bane of my existence in 7th edition. Because it would just do psychic powers out of it. It was a plane that was also a psyker, so it would smite. It yeah, fighting against 3 of these on a table, it was so painful. But how the mighty have fallen. So it's only toughness 8, only 12 wounds, no invuln save, only, 3-up save, a couple of good las cannons, this thing's gone. Its only weapon is a couple of D-scythes, which hit on 4s. An Eldar vehicle, an Eldar model that hits on 4+. And it's D6 shots. So if you roll badly, on average, you're getting like 3 shots apiece. So that's like 6 shots. You could maybe kill half a 10-man squad of tactical marines. And yeah, it's AP4, it's gonna do it. Anything that has an invuln save, oh, that hurts. But yeah, only 2 damage as well. This is probably the worst model of all. And again, 170 for its base size. It has to come on sideways. And yeah, for the same amount of points, you can just bring a Fire Prism. Fire Prism is only 6, points slower. And it has so much more damage potential, so much more survivability. Yeah, this is crazy. Why you would ever take a Wraith Fighter? And again, that's taking up your reserve. That's 150 points off your reserve limit. Instead of bringing like some of the jetpack guys with the big guns, so swooping hawks, you could bring them instead. You could bring a falcon instead in reserve. Deep strike that in. That is so much better. Just bring a falcon in your reserve to deep strike. Yeah, this is horrible. I don't know who let this happen, but yeah, Wraith Fighter, one of the worst choices, not just for planes, not just for aircraft, the worst choices you could bring in this game. That is astounding how much they messed that up. Alright, so looking at an alright choice though, we're looking at Dark Eldar. Now these are incredibly weak, because you can see that toughness 9, so an autocannon's going to take this guy out. 4-up save, 6-up invuln, big deal. So yeah, standard Dark Eldar stuff. Glass cannons for days. And this guy does alright, because he's got a couple of Dark Size of Void Lances. They're good. Powerful las cannons. Its ability to do mortal wounds from the Void Mine. That's really cool. That's a really good way to do the damage there. But again, it's 235. This guy actually can, its base is 120. You can put this, facing forwards. Cannot be hover. That was the other one. It can't be hover. It has to be as an aircraft. But you could just bring 2 Ravagers. And a Ravager will quite easily take out a Voidraven bomber. Like, if you look at it, with 3 Dark Lances, this will easily take out the bomber. Now, the bomber, it could take out maybe 1 Ravager. It couldn't take out 2. So this is very much points discrepancy. And as you can see there, Ravager has Deep Strike. So, yeah, if you wanted something, just a shooting vehicle that can get really fast up the board, you don't need to bring this bomber. You can just bring some Ravagers for more than half the price, and they're going to do better. It's like, what do they have? 1 less wound. Every other stat is the same, and they have more weapons. The only difference is it can't do mortal wounds. So this is interesting. It just shows you discrepancy. Oh, and of course the Voidraven bomber has stealth, so that helps it as well. Like I say, all aircraft should have stealth. Like, that's just how it should be. They should have some other ability to keep them safe. They should always have like a jinking cover save as well. Something like that. It's just interesting. It's interesting how much they didn't put any thought into it. But maybe that's the plan. Maybe they just don't want you to think about it. Maybe they just want to forget they exist. Like with this model, the Tiger Shark. A massive plane. I've actually seen a game like a couple editions ago where someone brought one in. It was cool. Did damage. But as you can see, the base size, this is around 160 millimeter base. This is too big to fit on the table. You cannot actually use this because it doesn't have hover mode. It has to be used as an aircraft rules. That has to come in reserve. It cannot go within the 6 inches to fit on the table, to be wholly within the 6 inches. So it can't be actually used in a legal game. So this is crazy. They didn't think of anything here. And yeah, it has the transport for tactical drones. Those are Legends. You can't bring tactical drones anymore unless you're playing Legends. So yeah, this is an unusable 325 model. And it's like over $400 Australian. This is incredibly expensive. If you have one, you cannot use it. So it's very interesting how they've done that. That is to say, they just didn't put any thought into it. I think Forge World, anything Forge World, just completely neglected. Like it doesn't put any worth thinking in. So it is a cool model though. It's a great model. It has a lot of shots. It can do a lot of damage. But yeah, just technically cannot be used. What can you do? It's crazy. So yeah, Tiger Shark. Forget it. Wipe it off the board. If you have one, sell it and hope the person doesn't know what they're getting can't be used. That's all you can do with it. So that's a shame. So yeah, this pretty much illustrates how much aircraft just can't be used in the edition. And is it likely it's gonna? Well, we could get something come back. So in 7th and 6th edition, they brought out Death from the Skies. It was a neat idea because they added the dogfight phase. So planes had a chance to have this own little duel thing that happened, where basically the planes were fighting before the movement phase, or it was like around the movement phase. Before the rest of the stuff on the ground was having a fight, this was happening in the airs and would have their own hypothetical battle zone and everything. So you had this sort of duel thing going on, which was kind of neat. It had a lot of rules to it. Yeah, this isn't a small book. This is a massive book. So, but nobody used it. I never saw anyone. I think I saw on Mini Wargaming they had like maybe one match where they used this, and it wasn't well received. Most of the reviews I see online of it, people are saying, why would they add all these extra complicated rules when we already have so many? It needed to, in its way, be its own separate game. I think that's what it comes down to. This would be alright in its own separate game, away from everything else. It just doesn't quite fit like a normal 10th edition battle. I heard the same argument said for like bringing Knight armies. Knight armies sort of break the immersion of scale into the game, and they didn't like that Knights were introduced into the game, and I can understand that. I love Knights, but yeah, I can understand why they don't really fit into this narrative we're putting them in on this battlefield. Like I said, artillery, I don't think really makes sense in this game much anymore. Tanks only just do. I mean, that's why I started the channel, to say, hey, tanks need to be their own separate thing. Because why would you bring a big anti-fortification tank into a firefight with a bunch of guys. So it just seems pointless. But anyway, I don't see this happening. I don't see them ever bringing back Death from the Skies. I don't see them putting a different version of the game out to use all these flyers, because most armies don't even have flyers. So we had Eldar, Dark Eldar, Tau, Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Orcs. And AdMech. It's like half of them. Yeah, I don't think Chaos really have any flyers. They've just got the Helldrake, which, yeah. So, I don't see this being important. I don't see it coming down to really putting any focus on it. So I think aircraft pretty much dead from the game. I think they want to move on from them. I think they want to sort of ignore that they exist. I don't see any real support ever coming back for these guys. So I see the game being put more to the ground, solely on the ground. And yeah, because essentially they just want more models. They want more smaller models, because the bigger the army that you can fit on the table, that's more money for them buying more models, essentially. Oh, that's the theory in general. But anyway, if you like planes, let me know. Let me know if you guys were actually playing any games where planes were used, where this would matter. But as far as I know, there's no real competitive list that uses aircraft, so we can put the nail in the coffin, really. I had fun back in sort of 6th and 7th when I had a Storm Raven, can do some fun things with it, but yeah, we can forget about it. It's one of the lost parts of the game. So we'll bury him, put up its tombstone, and we'll just have to move on. But anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you do want planes to come back in the game, how you would see them coming in. Should we bring back a Death from the Skies, like, standalone game? You know, let me know what you guys want. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.